The cave exploration took a terrifying turn they never expected.
On a March morning in 1968, 4 men sneaked past the off-limits sign into McFail's cave. Thrilled, they explored the spooky underground tunnels before deciding to go back. But in the few hours they'd spent there, the sun melted the snow on the surface, turning the cave's entrance into a waterfall. Right below this icy current.
Yo, I've seen some crazy stories of people, like cave people. And like, bro, have you seen it where they go in like the tight gaps and they get stuck there? Bro, that's like, why are they doing that? That is so scary, man.
One of the speleologists got stuck. At that moment, his entire life got narrowed down to a tight passage between the rocks.
Bro!
To its pressure, coldness, and the feeling of helplessness. But what is the most dangerous thing about caving? As always, viewer discretion is advised. If a mention of visiting caves conjures in your mind a picture of a wide, well-lit chamber with stairs and banisters, it's not the kind of caving we'll discuss in this video. Speleologists usually find themselves in environments that are quite the opposite of that. And for them, any injury sustained deep under the ground can pose a grave danger, especially if they're exploring Weybridge Cave in the US state of Vermont. No marked paths lead to it, and no tour buses have it as their destination. And even if you did accidentally end up by its entrance, you probably wouldn't realize this small opening leads to a sprawling system of underground labyrinths. Because first, you need to climb through an incredibly narrow restriction to the so-called nuisance drop, a vertical tunnel 5.5 meters deep. It continues into a horizontal part until it descends 12 meters with the main drop.
Chat, I genuinely don't get it, bro. These crazy cave people that will go down these tight gaps that you can barely get down. What are they trying to find? Like, do they think there's treasure at the bottom? Like, I don't get it, bro. I don't get, like, all it is just scary. It's just scary, bro.
This entire path lies through sharp, wet rocks. So, when on August 6th, 2013, two 20-year-old speleologists decided to go down into Weybridge Cave without ropes and safety gear, they immediately regretted it. Water was flowing down the steep descent, turning the walls wet. And in the pitch-black darkness and lack of space, even flashlights didn't help. Still, none of this stopped the young cave explorers. And finally, they made it to the main chamber. Dirty and wet, but happy, they spent over an hour exploring the underground tunnels. Yet having returned to the exit, the speleologists realized they'd made a grave mistake.
What, they can't get back out?
Now, they'd have to climb up the main descent without ropes. One of them confidently conquered the first 4.5 meters of the vertical wall, but suddenly slipped and fell. He tried to land on his feet, but this only caused him to break his ankle and fall with all his weight onto his tailbone. His companion immediately realized they would need help. Yet the situation turned out to be much dire. The speleologist who had fallen said he couldn't feel anything below the waist. This meant he had sustained a serious spine injury. But even to call for help, the other man had to get out of the cave since no one knew where they were. Slowly and carefully, scaling up the...
Yo, at least if you're gonna do this, please have people know where you are. Like, I would never do this, right? But if I were to do it because I need the thrill, right? Whatever, right? I would tell people. I would be like, yo, if you don't hear from me at this time, come and get me, bro. Send help. Send help. You know what I'm saying?
The slippery walls. The injured speleologist's companion miraculously managed to reach the surface and call for a firing squad. In a moment, the firefighters arrived at the cave entrance, but had to admit they lacked the necessary training and gear to help the victim. They went on to call in the experts from the Vermont Cave Rescue Network. They summoned the best speleologists in the area and started the rescue operation. First, they had to install the bolts and stretch out the ropes, enabling them to get the injured man out of the cave. The rescuers came down to him and tried to make him lie on a special stretcher, but every moment caused the victim unspeakable pain. There were no other options though, and the rescue team started lifting the man from the cave floor. That was when the rescuers came up against new, seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
What happened?
Between the descents, the cave narrowed to 35 centimeters,
Can't get a stretcher.
and it was impossible to get the stretchers with the victim through them. Nevertheless,
Hey, listen, at this point, bro, just throw him over your shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Just get him out of there. Hey, listen, I know you're in pain. I know you're broken your bones. But just give him some injection. Make him not feel the pain. Just shove him over the shoulder, bro.
Rescuers found a way out. It involved widening the tunnels with a pneumatic chisel. It worked on air tanks, but one tank only lasted for 3 minutes. So the process turned out to be lengthy. But this didn't end the hardships. The most serious challenge turned out to be the entrance tunnel. It was so narrow that the stretcher with the man couldn't be pushed through it even in the sideways position. More than that, each movement was causing the victim intolerable pain. Only in the morning of the following day, 12 hours after the injury, the injured speleologist was taken out of the cave. Doctors diagnosed him with a broken spine, but the man's further fate remains unknown. If at least something in this story had gone differently, the man would most likely have died in the cave. But is the risk of injury the most severe danger in caving? When in 2007, a young English married couple, Helena and John, arrived at Khao Sok National Park in Thailand, they thought they were in the most wonderful place in the world. It was their dream journey, and they wanted to see as many things as possible.
Oh, yo, that's actually, bro, this is stunning, mate. Oh, this would be sick. Like being on a boat and seeing these.
As many things as possible. So, among the events they planned, there was a tour to Nam Talu Cave. It's a 700-meter tunnel carved by water in the limestone. In some places, it looks like a giant chamber, and in others, it narrows to a small crack between the rocks. Moreover, the stream that created Nam Talu still flows through the cave. The tourists have to walk almost the entire path, plowing through water, and even up to their necks in it. That's why tours around the cave are only allowed from the end of October, after the rainy season ends. Yet Helena and John found a Nam Talu tour that started just before October 14th, 2007. Okay. 2 Thai guides gathered their tourists group in front of the entrance and handed out flashlights. Apart from the English couple, there were also the Fisher family from Switzerland with 2 teenage daughters, and a 10-year-old boy whose mother allowed him to go to the cave under the supervision of the adult group members.
Hold the fuck on! Hold up! I wouldn't even go there! You're taking 2 teenage girls and a 10-year-old boy? Okay, this ain't gonna end well. Yep. This ain't gonna end, this ain't gonna end well.
When all of them entered the Nam Talu, there were no...
So many dumb ways to die. Dumb ways to die.
You're not wrong, Pusia. You're not wrong.
Supervision of the adult group members. When all of them entered the Nam Talu, there were no signs of danger, but suddenly, a torrential rain started. When the group was around halfway there, Helena heard a strange rumbling behind her, and very soon the water current under her feet suddenly became stronger.
Oh no.
She and her husband immediately ran to the nearest elevation, and this was what saved them from the water wall that rushed into the cave with all its incredible force. In front of the terrified Helena, the entire Fisher family, along with the guides and the 10-year-old boy, were carried away by the current. She and John managed to hold on and climb onto a ledge, yet the couple had lost their flashlights, so they were surrounded by complete darkness. They couldn't even understand if the water kept rising and had to blindly keep climbing higher. But there was nowhere left to go. They spent hours huddled together on...
Hey, at these kind of times, this is where you wish you ate all your carrots growing up, bro.
Shake those bitties. Oh, you gotta shake those bitties. Every time you shake those bitties. Come on.
Anonymous, thank you for the biddies, bro.
Thank you guys so much for shaking.
Yo, you won't be able to see it all, right?
Let's shake them, let's shake them, let's shake all the bitties, let's shake bitties. I love you guys.
Bro, how long is this?
Come on, shake bitties.
Yo, you know when like you're in your bedroom, right? And like you can, you know, it's pitch black, but your eyes adjust to the darkness. Would it do that in the cave or not? Would it just be pitch black? Oh, bless me.
On a small rock, oblivious to the flow of time and with no feeling of their ice-cold limbs. The cold, the darkness, and the unknown kept weighing down on John and Helena. Eventually, the man couldn't take it anymore and decided to move forward in the darkness. hoping to find the way out of the cave and call for help.
God.
John got down into the water and quickly vanished into the dark, and the woman remained all alone, barely controlling her panic.
Wait, what's that?
And the way out of the cave and call for help. Down on John and Helena. Eventually, the man couldn't take it anymore and decided to move forward in the darkness, hoping to find the way out of the cave and call for help. John got down into the water and quickly vanished into the dark, and the woman remained all alone, barely controlling her panic.
Yo, I'd rather be with someone than alone. I'd rather be with someone than alone.
Meanwhile, it took the people on the surface a few hours to realize the group
Fucking chat, my nose is going crazy, bro.
hadn't returned from Talu, after which they sent rescuers to the cave. Yet the first thing the rescue team saw was a fully inundated cave that was impossible to enter.
Mad.
Long 16 hours passed before Helena, petrified by the cold and her shock, saw the rays of flashlights. The woman screamed with all her might to draw attention to herself and heard an answering shout. She was saved.
No way.
The bodies of all other group members had been found 8 hours earlier, and Helena was the only survivor.
Bro, that is crazy, man. Those poor kids as well, that they took them down. The 10-year-old and the two teenage girls. Bro, that's horrible. And her boyfriend, the man that left as well, because he just left her by herself because she was panicking and he wanted to make it out. Bro, yo, I bet he wish he stayed with her now. Jesus.
Helena's husband,
there,
John, was also one of the victims. But if others were washed away by the water, with not a single chance of survival, his cause of death was panic and fear of the unknown. This is another crucial aspect that, alongside physical injuries, can turn caving into a disaster. Yet there's also another thing, the element that links these.
Isn't my strategy every man for himself? Yeah, but in my defense, I know I'd make it out. I know I'd make it out. Because first of all, I would have food, so I would survive longer, right? Because obviously, the husband and the wife, it's every man for yourself. If you're down there, you need food, you know you're going to die. There's a food source right next to you. You know what I'm saying? But chat, I'm just saying, listen, hunger will do crazy things to people, bro. If you're on an island with one other person, and that's the only food source, let me just tell you right now, it's going to happen, bro. It's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? I'd make it out of there. I will. I'm telling you, I would.
Tragedies with others. Its name is Carelessness. The two Vermont speleologists neglected their safety gear, as well as the guides and tourists in Thailand went to the cave before the designated time. A similar fate befell a group from St. Joseph's Home for Boys back in 1993. It was a center for troubled teens not far from St. Louis in the U.S. 13-year-old Gary Marr lived there. That year, the area was ravaged by a record-breaking flood, forcing him and other inhabitants to stay inside. So when the rain finally stopped, the leaders decided to take the kids on a trip to Cliff Cave Park. There's an underground cave system on the premises.
Hold up. Right, listen, we've already gone wrong.
Kids on a trip to Cliff Cave Park.
I don't get this. I don't get this, right? Listen. You said it's a school or a home of troubled boys, right? So that means boys that are misbehaved, yeah? They don't behave well. And you're taking them cave exploring? In what world do you think that's a good idea? In what world do you think that's a good idea? Bro, you know what I'm saying? Bro, I was a misbehaved kid, yeah? Any teacher's nightmare would be taking me cave exploring. Because you'll just go off, but you just be a kid. You just go off by yourself. You'll do some dumb shit, right? You'll do some dumb shit. Well, not me, because I'd make it out, but...
An underground cave system on the premises, stretching to almost 1 kilometer, 600 meters. Gary's group wasn't the first to arrive in the park, and the weather had stayed nice for a few days before. Yet Cliff Cave turned out to be moist, and a little stream was flowing through the tunnels. Nevertheless, 16 people, 4 teachers and 12 boys, aged 7 to 14, kept enthusiastically exploring the underground tunnels. Suddenly, a teacher named Darnell Redmond, who...
Yo, I ain't gonna lie, you guys, this is in America, right? You guys in America go on some crazy school trips. Mate, in the UK, We just go and see some cows at the local farm, right? You guys are going fucking cave exploring me. What the fuck?
Who was an experienced speleologist, offered the older kids to descend deeper. 5 guys, one of whom was Gary, and another teacher, Jennifer Method, supported the man's suggestion and headed for the dark, narrow passage. The teenagers were astounded by this adventure, but felt totally safe, accompanied by 2 adults. So, no one paid attention when the water in the little stream under their feet started rising. As it turned out, an unexpected rainstorm started during their descent into the depths. Only when the water in the stream reached their ankles did the tourists understand that they needed to go back. But the water currents suddenly came bursting from the walls and the ceiling. The children screamed and rushed toward the exit, but at that very moment, a 1.5 meter tall wave caught up with them and swept them off their feet. Merciless,
fuck.
the water threw them onto the sharp rocks and slammed their bodies against the stones. In the end, Gary managed to cling onto a fissure and raise his head above the water. He clung onto the rock with all of his remaining strength and heard the screams of his friends grow more and more distant until they were completely gone. Gary spent a few hours like this, silently panicking, hearing only the beat of his own heart in the pitch-black darkness. Later, the water level dropped a bit, leaving the boy just enough space to breathe. Yet something horrible happened. Suddenly, something lapped at Gary, and he realized that it was a dead human body. Meanwhile, the part of the group that remained on the surface understood that the rest of the team needed urgent help right after it started raining. They called the rescuers, who arrived in less than half an hour, but they couldn't enter the cave as it was completely flooded. Furthermore, people soon noticed an object near the cave entrance and were horrified because it was a human corpse. The rescuers searched the surroundings and found 2 more dead.
Hey, you gonna be playing this for every clip? Bro, why are people doing this though? Like, it actually is dumb. It actually is dumb.
Victims in the debris and the trash. Only a few hours later did the water level drop for the rescue squad to enter the cave. Still, some tunnels were out of reach, and moving in the freezing water was complicated.
But the thing is, this isn't dumb because of the kids, bro. The kids don't know better. They're 7 to 14, man. They're so young, right? What are the teachers playing at? In what world do the teachers think this is a good... Bro, like, this is not a good idea, bro. Taking 7 to 14-year-old kids.
Dangerous. After walking for only 305 meters, the rescuers found the 4th body. The parents of dead and missing kids came to the cave. Some of them had to recognize the bodies, and the others hoped their kids had miraculously survived. Yet no other bodies were found before nightfall, and the search had to be suspended. Returning to Cliff Cave in the morning, the rescue teams weren't sure the rest of the missing people were still in the cave, so a helicopter searched even the neighboring river tributaries. Suddenly, a whole day after the disastrous rainstorm began, the rescuers heard a voice. That's how they found a small chamber where Gary Marr was sitting on a tiny ledge.
Oh, no way.
He said that he'd heard the rescue team's voices and saw their flashlights the day before, but he couldn't catch their attention due to the water noises, so he thought he'd never be found. Later, the boy found he was the only survivor of this disaster.
Oh, wow.
Yet he had no idea that he was also on the verge of death, since at any moment, Gary could have fallen into the freezing water, developing hypothermia and surely dying long before the rescuers' arrival. So, can the cold temperatures be the most serious danger in caving? The answer to this question was found by 4 friends, who in the morning of March 16, 1968, decided to go down to McFail's cave in the state of New York. On the surface, it was only a small opening among the rocks that a human could barely squeeze through. Yet it opens into a wide hole with a depth of 13.7 meters, the bottom of which narrows into a restriction that's just 60 centimeters wide. Then, like an hourglass, it widens again into a vertical tunnel that stretches a little over 12 meters down. From there, a visitor gains access to a cave complex with a total length of over 10.5 kilometers. McFail's cave has yet another distinct feature. During rainfall or snowmelt, the tunnel entrance becomes a waterfall. But on a spring day, when 4 young speleologists went down to the cave, only a little stream was flowing there, which wasn't a problem. The men spent a few hours exploring the underground passages, became tired, and decided to return. But when they reached the exit, it turned out that the spring warmth had melted a lot of snow and ice while they'd been in the cave. All that water ran to the cave, turning its entrance into a mighty waterfall. Yet the speleologists had no choice. They had to get to the surface somehow, even if only to call for help. But the water current made the task incredibly difficult. The rocks got even more slippery, and the ice-cold water was freezing the speleologists.
Oh, shit.
Still, Ronald dared to go first, and after lengthy efforts, he managed to get out of the cave. But the rest of his friends were still under the ground. So the man ran to the nearest farm and called a rescue team. The local firefighters arrived at around 3:30 p.m. By that time, the speleologist had spent over 5 hours in the flooded cave. Although Andrew and Michael managed to climb up to the upper chamber, Gerald was still at the very bottom. That's why, first, the firefighters rescued the 2 men stuck nearer to the entrance, whereas Gerald was in a lot of trouble. The man was standing in the current of ice-cold water, not hearing the voices of the rescuers due to the noise. And the rescuers, after lowering a rope into the cave, couldn't even see if Gerald had attached himself to it or not.
Wait,
because
could he
the
not
passage
wiggle it?
between the upper and lower chambers was too narrow, the firefighters physically couldn't push through it to reach the trapped speleologist.
Oh, shit.
His rescued companions were suffering from hypothermia and couldn't go into the cave again. The rescuers had no choice but to start pulling at the rope, hoping that Gerald had tied it around himself. Very soon, the
Yeah, how is it with these like cave explorers? They're not doing research on the actual caves. But that's something that I'll do, bro. But I'm not dumb enough to go in the cave, you know what I'm saying? Because I'd be like, yo, it is what it is, you know what I mean? I'm going inside. But I wouldn't be dumb enough to go inside anyway. But if you are going to go inside, why are you doing research like, oh, there's snow on the entrance of the cave, it's a hot day, it does happen to turn into a waterfall. You know what I'm saying? That's crucial things to know, mate.
rope tightened and stopped moving altogether. This could only mean one thing. There was a person at the other end, and they were stuck. Through the dense water streams, the firefighter managed to make out Gerald's figure. His helmet was tilted, and the freezing water was pouring right down his face. The men could now hear each other, but the trapped cave explorer was growing weaker every second from the unbearable cold. But even after an hour and a half of their attempts to save the man, the rescuers didn't manage to free him from his trap. They needed someone who could squeeze through to the lower chamber. So the firefighters turned to the locals with a plea for help. Finally, in a few hours, a local guy agreed to assist them.
Okay.
But all this time, Gerald was right under the streams of ice-cold water. So when the volunteer managed to reach the lower chamber, he saw a horrifying scene.
Oh, dead body.
Gerald was pale and didn't move. Finally, he was raised to the surface, but the doctor's verdict was that the man had died 2 hours before, and he hadn't choked on water, as it might have seemed, but instead, he had frozen to death. So this time, cold became the killer of a speleologist. Is hypothermia, then, the most dangerous killer of cave explorers? The answer to this question can be found in a tragedy.
Wait, could you not bring him back to life, though, if you froze to death? Because isn't that like the cryo technology? You freeze a body and then you can bring him back to life. I thought that's how it worked. Like, if you froze because of ice, could you not bring him back? Yeah, it don't work that way. There's a different kind of freezing. Well, crocodiles do it. Don't crocodiles go in like freezing cold water, pretty much freeze with their noses at the water, and then they, you know, wake up again. Like many months later. That's because they're cold-blooded. Oh, okay. That's because they're ripped. Oh, okay. Well. Damn, bro.
That happened just a few years before the one we've just discussed and became a legend of modern caving. In 1965, a young scientist named James Mitchell died in another cave located in the state of New York. He was also stuck in a narrow tunnel through which flowed an ice-cold river. For the first time, his death taught us that water constitutes the greatest danger for speleologists. Mitchell's remains were removed from the bottom of the cave only 40 years later, and during that time, caving changed unrecognizably worldwide. Yet despite all the achievements brought to us by progress, freezing water is still the deadliest danger for speleologists.
Yeah, this water's killing
And what
everyone,
aspect
mate.
of caving scares you the most? Share your
Everything.
thoughts in the comments and subscribe to this channel
Everything.
to avoid missing new stories.
Everything.